We are here. It's Fantasy Games. It's Squish. It's Kyle. Kyle, how are we feeling? You look a little jacked today. You look like you traps. You've been working out. You've been doing some shoulder shrugs.
It's pretty hot in this apartment, so that's kind of the reason why here. And I'm very pumped up for football season, so I guess that's why this this skin is a little red right now. Yeah. It's the excitement for the NFL season. It's the excitement for Game 6 here tonight with the Celtics and the Raptors, all of those things.
Okay, wow. Kyle's ready for business. Well, let's get right into it, right? We got value plays for you tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start with that Boston and Toronto game. Kyle, who's your value play tonight? I think it's on the Raptors, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's tough with this Raptors and Celtics series. There haven't been many guys who've been very consistent. But Fred VanVleet has been one of those guys who's been like, his shooting percentage has not been that great, but he's overall been a pretty consistent player. He's been averaging 18 points a game, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 39.1 fantasy points per game in this series.
Yep.
And I like these at a 1.4x multiplier. That's definitely a guy that you can continue to rely on here for Game 6.
Mm-hmm.
And what Nick Nurse has been doing here in this series is he's just been playing all of his guys huge minutes. Lowry, VanVleet, OG Anunoby, and Siakam all played over 40 minutes. And
unlike Budenholzer, who won't play Giannis or Middleton over 36, 38.
That's a different story about how bad of a playoff coach he is. But yeah, Nurse has been doing that. So Fred VanVleet has been the most consistent guy fantasy-wise on the Raptors. And at 1.4x, I think he's the most reliable guy you can go with this week. I
agree. Tonight. And I think he blows away his points and assist total on average tonight for the series, 18 and 6.5. I know it's, most sports books have those a little higher, I think at 19.5 and then at 7 or 7.5 assists. I think he blows through those. I think he's a great play tonight, especially, like you said, very consistent with a little bit of juice there on the multiplier. For me, I got Jaylen Brown. You saw what he can do last game out. I mean, in that obliteration, the Raptors just looked depleted throughout that game. Jaylen Brown was a big part of that. He had 27, 6, and 3 steals, over 61 multiplier fantasy points. At tonight, I believe he's had at a 1.4, right around where VanVleet is as well. So he's a guy where he makes the Celtics go. If you think this is a Celtics game that they're going to close it out in 6, I think it's going to be a little close, but I think they're going to get it done. In wins this postseason, Celtic wins. Jaylen Brown has averaged 21, 6, and a steal and a half a game, 44% shooting. Not amazing numbers, but at 1.4, I believe that's his floor tonight if the Celtics win. And I do think the Celtics are going to win.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's not a great pool of selections here with Toronto and Boston, just because everyone has been just so all over the map. Like Tatum hasn't been very good these last couple of games fantasy wise. I mean, Brown has probably been the most consistent, yet he had a really tough, what was that, Game 4? So, but yeah, ultimately, I think you can rely on Brown. So I think that I would agree with you with that. So VanVleet and Brown were two pretty good picks for that.
And when you're talking about forwards too in this slate, you have Tatum at 1x, you have Kawhi at 1.1, I think, and then Siakam at 1.25. Give me Jaylen Brown with the extra juice, 100%.
With how
obviously you want them mixed in, you know, those guys can go off, but if that's who's ahead of Jaylen Brown and he's all the way down at 1.4x, give me Jaylen Brown.
I agree.
Give me the neon
100%.
shoes. Just give me all the flash. All right, that's the 6:30 game, and I'm pretty sure you're on the Celtics tonight. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous, but can't rule out Toronto with how gritty they are. But I think ultimately the Celtics are a better team, so I think they'll close the deal tonight.
I agree. It's going to be tough, but we'll see. Next game, the night game, Clippers, Denver. Now, I know some people might say here this pick is a value pick. There is plenty of value here because this is the only center that you're going to want on your team. This is going to be the highest scoring center regardless of any other multiplier. And who is it?
Right. Yeah. So Nikola Jokic is not exactly someone you think value-wise, but honestly, at 1.1, like you should consider him as valuable. Like with the way he's played his last couple of games, he is basically he should be valued at 1x, where he's put up 29 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists in these last 2 games, and 59 fantasy points per game for these last 2. And this is something that is going to continue because of the matchup he has with the Clippers. Like the Clippers just don't have anyone who can come close to guarding him. Like Montrezl Harrell tried last night. He just bowled through him. Same thing with Ibaka Zubac. Like they just don't have any guys who can guard him down there. And if you double team him, he is literally, like, it's not even hyperbole to say he's the greatest passing big man in the history of basketball. I don't think that's even hyperbole. So like if you double team him, he's going to find open guys. He's going to get on the boards. He's been very aggressive in this entire playoffs. So
it's not even worth looking at any other centers. It's not.
Yeah, I would agree. I think especially at 1.1 where you get like some additional, juice there with the amount of points he's going to put up anyway. Like I think that's a very good value to get him at 1.1.
Yep. And I'm going to stick on the same team for my value play, Michael Porter Jr. We've seen the emergence of him in this bubble, and his ceiling is so high. And he only has to be on the floor for about 20 minutes to reach that ceiling because of how dynamic he is. Last game out, 18, 10, 3 steals, almost 66 fantasy points. With a 1.55x multiplier, that stat line that you're seeing right now, 18, 10, a few steals with the 3-point shooting that he can provide, give me that. All he has to do is get 18 and 10 with a little extra stuff on the side, and you're getting over 60 points. How do you not insert him in your lineup when that's the case, Kyle? Give me a reason. Come at me.
I mean, the thing that's tough with him is his defense can be really bad, and Michael Malone has a hard time trusting him sometimes with how bad his defense is. But like there are some times where like they're going to need his scoring out there, and he has the talent to put up points in bunches with, at 6'10", the ability to shoot threes.
Yep.
He can get to the basket. So I like him as a value play. It is a little bit risky with, how good he is or how not bad he is on defense. I think that's a better way to put it, because there are some nights where he's not great, but you can still survive with him out there. But then there are also some times where he's so bad that he's killing you on that end of the floor and you can't even keep him in. So there is risk, but we've seen that, there are games where he will be able to stay out on the floor and then he'll put up these type of numbers.
Yeah. Now, Ricky wants us to talk about Matt Stafford. We won't. I expect payment from you also, Ricky, at the end of that bet. We're not going to talk about that, though. We were talking about Lou Dort last week or the week before. I wanted to bring this up because as we're talking about Michael Porter being awful on defense, we were talking about Lou Dort. You're saying he's great at defense, but he can't hit the bottom of a barrel. Lou Dort went off. Do you have any apologies to Lou Dort, who I did confirm Arizona State product? Do you have anything to say to Luguentz Dort?
I have to say, there's zero chance Luguentz Dort is watching this, but from the bottom of my heart, I am extremely sorry for my slander that I threw at you that last week, where I think I said he can't do anything well, and he went out there and he scored 30 points in Game 7 for the Oklahoma City Thunder and was probably their best player. Which if you told me that was going to happen, I would say there's a better chance I get hit by a car and struck by lightning at the same time than Luguentz Dort would score 30 points in a Game 7. So, yeah, who the hell knows what?
Yeah, you'll take your losses there. I'll take that loss there.
I'll take an L there. So.
All right.
Yeah, it was tough. And our guy Danilo Gallinari suffered as a result of that. So there weren't many guys going to the Italian restaurant and saying Gallinari because he screwed everybody.
Yep. A lot of disappointed ladies that night.
Yeah, tough scene.
Yeah, including my girlfriend. All right, so NFL single game. We'll move on. Now, the single game slate is pretty good. You got Chiefs, Texans. Make sure you still enter. It's still plenty of entries that you can get in there. 25,000 total prizes, 5,000 a first. Huge matchup between the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. A new look Houston Texans, but still a serviceable offense and a pretty good team under. Not Bill O'Brien kind of stinks, but Deshaun Watson leading the way.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You're always going to have a chance. So, Kyle, you're going to have an article out tomorrow. Who is your value play for this single game slate?
So with DeAndre Hopkins no longer a part of the Houston Texans because Bill O'Brien is a really stupid human being, Will Fuller will be a very good option for you fantasy-wise now. Most of the time he's not healthy, but he's going to be healthy this week for week 1. And
I love the big brain churning. He can't get hurt if this is his first game, so keep going.
Exactly,
I love it.
And so he has a 2.15x multiplier as the number 1 receiver for the Houston Texans. Yeah. You may think that Brandon Cooks would be that, but something to consider here with the pandemic shortening the training camps and no preseason games is there's a lot less time for these quarterbacks to become acclimated with their receivers, especially the newer ones. And Deshaun Watson has been with Will Fuller for a few years now. So there's going to be that chemistry that's already there. And we've seen when he's healthy, he can really, take
the top off of defense.
Yes, absolutely. And at 2.15x at the flex spot, and then if you put him at champion at 3.25x, I would love that. And I think he's going to be getting, I would be not surprised at all if he gets double-digit targets in this game.
All right, so SD Gold Club, we know what Kyle's running at champion. So
yeah, that's tipped my hand there, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, we tip our hands with all our articles. Tough. Good thing they don't read them, or else they'd
exactly. Yeah, Ricky never reads them.
Okay,
go ahead.
My value play, I got to go David Johnson. I love David Johnson. I don't care what happened last year. His injuries are a little overblown to me. We'll go over it. 2.35 in the flex, 3.55 as champion. In Chiefs' 4 losses in 2019, they averaged 179 rushing yards allowed at 5.2 yards per carry and 7 total TDs. Now, I don't think the Texans are going to win this game. However, I believe the spread is at 10. I think they're giving away 10 points to Chiefs. I think it's going to be in there, and I think they're going to cover. So I'm not worried about David Johnson. If there's a blowout and they can't run the ball, David Johnson is more than capable at catching the ball out of the backfield, running wheel routes, going down the seam. I believe, in 62 games, 309 targets, 208 catches, over 2,200 yards, and 15 receiving touchdowns. So he is not out of the game script if they are down. Correct?
Yeah,
would you agree?
Yeah, I'm a lot less high. I'm a lot lower on David Johnson, to be honest. I think after his amazing 2016 season, he got hurt the next year. And then these last couple of years, he's been he's averaged 3.7 yards per carry. And
did you watch those games? Obviously, his ACL in 2017, came back from that. The injury last year was a wrist injury. And after that is when Cliff Kingsbury wanted to completely shift the offense. It wasn't because David Johnson couldn't do anything. It was because Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds fit what they wanted to do with Kyler Murray in the backfield a little bit more. And so that's why I think people down on David Johnson this year are going to get a whole mouthful of David Johnson this year, and they're not even going to like it. And it doesn't have to matter because it's going to happen. And in 6 games last year, the 6 games that the Chiefs allowed 7+ receptions to opposing backfields, averaged 106 yards per game with 4 total TDs.
Okay.
He's going to be in the game script no matter what. If they're up, he's going to be running the ball. And as we know, Chiefs losses can't defend the run. If they're down, David Johnson can catch balls out of the backfield with any of them. He can catch my balls out of the backfield if he wants. I'm going to draft him on every single team this year.
Well, another thing, that's another chemistry guy you have to worry about a little bit because, he's new to the Texans,
That
never
is
hasn't
true.
played in their system yet. So I don't know.
Well, if
I'm
that's
a
the
little
case,
bit, I'm
then
a
Will
little bit
Fuller's the
shaky
only
on that
person
one.
getting targets for the Texans.
Well, again, I'm
I'm
not
just
being
kidding. I'm kidding.
completely legitimate with that, obviously. But yeah, it's not like Will Fuller is going to get 50 targets in this game, or else
Yeah.
he'd be dead on the field. But yeah, do we want to move on to
Yeah,
our
we'll
other
move on.
plays
We're
we
talking
got?
about receivers, so we'll move on to the full slate. Kyle,
Yep.
value receiver you're looking at, and you had this guy even before Mike Evans was questionable with a hamstring injury, which could
Yes.
linger, by the way.
So my guy right here, Scotty Miller of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who has been apparently, according to Tom Brady, has been lighting it up in camp and has been a extremely reliable. Like you can see the quotes right there on the screen of, he's another great, consistent, dependable, trustworthy player. Whatever we talk about, he takes it to the next practice, and his play is showing everybody that he's earned a big role. So you can't take those comments lightly from Tom Brady. I mean, he is the trust factor that Tom Brady has with his receivers is as important as anything. And we've seen that over the years. I mean, Julian Edelman was a guy who was undrafted and then didn't play for his first 3 years. And he gets in there and becomes a huge guy in the offense. And I think, especially with Scotty Miller being a slot receiver, which is historically Tom Brady's number one target in an offense. I mean, just look at all the years, Troy Brown, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, all those guys are slot receivers. And I think, as I said before, with the whole trust thing and developing chemistry with, if he feels comfortable already with Scotty Miller and he hasn't had enough time with Mike
And
Evans,
he's been having workouts in Florida illegally because Tom likes to break the law, I guess. But, his morals have gone away in old age. He seems to have a forgetful mind that, he's a human being and has to, associate with the rest of society and do good for all, not just him.
Well,
go ahead.
when you're that committed to the game, then who cares, according to him. But Evans and Godwin, he might not have chemistry with those guys quite yet. Yeah. But like when you hear Brady say something like this, and he's Scotty Miller's a slot receiver, I feel very good about it, especially at 1.85x. Yeah. And especially if Mike Evans is questionable to go in this game. So
yeah, I think that definitely raises his stock. But even if Evans can't go, and hamstring injury, that's what he went on IR with last year. So that's something you're going to be able to watch through the course of a few weeks because Mike Evans, as we've seen in the past, might not stay healthy. And Chris Godwin is definitely going to benefit from that as well. I think he's at like 145 for the first week. I haven't checked that. So he's going to benefit too. I mean, those guys aren't low on their multiplier end, so his targets are going to have plenty of juice pretty much all season, I would assume.
Yep. I'm with you. Who do
now,
you
for me, I got Deshaun Jackson. The off-season issues with what he said, not going to condone it, but boy, can this man ball. Excuse me. At 1.7x, he's playing the Washington football team. Week 1 last year against Washington, 9 targets, 8 catches, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, 56.78 fantasy points when you factor in this multiplier. He's a tournament play. He always is. Guys like that, the deep ball, you only have to catch 1 touchdown to get value. And Deshaun Jackson can do it in spades. There is still some injuries on that Philadelphia offense. I believe Brandon Ayuk, that rookie, he's not going to be playing. They're always going to have
they can't
injury
stay healthy
issues
to save their lives. They are always they can't stop themselves from getting hurt. So
this is not a cash play. This is not a cash game. You're playing double ups with your buddies or whatever. This is a tournament play. You want to take it down. 1.7x for a guy who has no problem catching 60-yard touchdowns against a bum defense like the Redskins. Washington ranked 23rd in explosive pass rate last year. I believe it was at 10%. They almost love letting up the deep ball is what it seems like.
Yep, I'm with you. I think that has a really good chance to be, if he hits, that's a thing that could take down the contest if he's in your lineup. So Want to move on? Who do you got for your tight end pick?
All right,
Alex?
tight ends. I love me some Jack Doyle this year. And it's pretty much, if you read my articles, I'll be writing about things every week. Jack Doyle is going to be on my list for tight ends every single week, just because Phillip Rivers loves his tight ends. I mean, Kyle, you and I, even Chris, our producer, I'm sure, we're men. We love a nice tight end, but not as much as Phillip Rivers likes a tight end. All those years to Gates, pass it over to Hunter Henry,
Yes.
loves a nice tight end. Top 12 tight end in 13 of his 14 seasons with the Chargers. San Diego led the league in tight end target percentage over the past 5 years with 36.6%, always throwing to the tight ends. Colts tight ends against the Jaguars last season, or the last 2 seasons, 36 targets, 25 catches, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns. You can see right there on the screen. But even just from a standpoint of Phillip Rivers, yeah, he's always loved throwing to tight ends, but Phillip Rivers used to have an arm. Phillip Rivers' arm is not the same as it used to be. That'll happen when you have 18,000 kids. You lose feeling in a lot of your limbs because of all the stuff that you're doing on the side. So I can understand that. But that's perfect for the tight end. Doyle works over the middle of the field, intermediate routes. That's where he makes his money.
Yep.
I don't love T.Y. Hilton this year at all because I'm not convinced Phillip Rivers is going to be able to get him the ball. He will have the time with that offensive line.
Right.
But that arm man, I think Jack Doyle is going to be a moneymaker every single week.
Yep. And I think just to add on to that, I think we discussed this last week. They're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have decided to rip their team to shreds and to basically tank here in 2020. So I think that's going to be a defense for pretty much any position that you're going to be looking at to play guys fantasy wise with.
Yes.
So, I mean, with especially here with Jack Doyle at tight end with Rivers throwing him the ball. So I think that's a really good matchup for him. So I like that pick. The guy that I got is the Atlanta Falcons' new tight end, Hayden Hurst.
Mm-hmm.
So Matt Ryan's another guy that likes his tight ends, and it got Austin Hooper paid a lot of money this offseason from the Cleveland Browns. And Hayden Hurst didn't really have a huge season last year with Baltimore. He had 30 catches, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But he was behind Mark Andrews the entire season, and he didn't get the opportunities that he could have as a starter, which he will now in Atlanta. And I think, this week he's going to be playing Seattle, which Seattle was ranked 30th in the NFL in fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. So I think this is a really nice soft landing for Hayden Hurst to get off to a really good start in Atlanta with the Falcons. And at 1.75x, I mean, that's a really good value play to get with, I think Hayden Hurst could definitely get into the 5 catch, 60 yards and a touchdown range. And that multiplier, that's a really good value to have. So
I believe it's the second highest point total right now that they have out there. So there's going to be a lot of points scored. I love a stack in that game. I mean, with Hurst in it too, get that juice, Matt Ryan, bring it back with like a DK Metcalf. But like you said, Hayden Hurst is in a good spot. Austin Hooper, I think, got just under 100 targets last year. And you have a guy like Hayden Hurst, not a lot of tread on or still got a lot of tread on the tires, not a lot of wear and tear. He can come in there and step into the role that got 97 targets last season. I don't think he might not get 97 targets, but if you get Hayden Hurst production from Baltimore at, let's say, 75 targets, you're going to be getting value just about every single week.
Yeah, and Hooper is another guy that just kind of came out of nowhere, and he wasn't like a super highly touted guy when he got to Atlanta. And Hurst is kind of in that same category, and I think just with the opportunities that he has now in Atlanta versus what he had in Baltimore last year, I think it's just tailor-made for him to have a breakout season. And I think at 1.75, this might be as good of a value as you're going to find him at from this point on from the rest of the season. So I think,
I agree.
Yeah, I would lock him in.
I love me some Hayden Hurst. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Fantasy Gainz. Go check those lineups. If you like our opinion, if not, up to you. But I'm always right, and Kyle's right half the time. So you're at least going to get 75% right from this channel right here. All right. For Kyle Schroeder, I'm Squish DeLuco. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.